Dear Blue Lives Matter and All Lives Matter movement participants, my name is Kennedy Metter. I am a 16-year-old African American female activist. I currently attend Westerville Central High as a sophomore located in Columbus, Ohio. I stand before you all today to speak about a long-lasting issue around the world that places a wall of indifference along with disagreements between you and me, the Black Lives Matter movement. We live in such a world today that is impacted by social media, an interaction in which people create, share, and or exchange information and ideas virtually. I shall use my youth and platform to not only address my beliefs and views, but to encourage change that can improve lives. You may be thinking that a young girl like me, someone who has yet to fully experience life, has not grasped enough information or has yet to be formally educated on such a political topic. I hope that after today, that perspective will change and remain modified. The Black Lives Matter movement is a member-led organization that builds local power and intervenes in violence inflicted on the Black community after facing many cases of police brutality and systematic racism. The foundation began from the enragement after the death of Trayvon Martin took place, who at the time was 17 years of age, shot and killed by George Zimmerman. This widespread establishment is run by Alicia Garza, an African-American civil rights and editorial writer, Patrisse Cullors, an advocate for prison abolition, and Opal Tometi, a Nigerian activist and strategist. For decades, these core three leaders, along with the rest of the Black community, have been fighting for the rights that should have been guaranteed to all, as they are titled natural born. They have worked to overcome economic inequality and mass incarceration while committing to grappling together to imagine a world free of anti-Blackness. There are many cases of systematic racism faced towards the Black ethnicity that until this day have yet to be brought into the light. BlackLivesMatter.com states, a year later we set out together on the Black Lives Matter freedom ride to Ferguson in search of justice for Mike Brown and all of those who have been torn apart by state-sanctioned violence and anti-Black racism. Forever Change, we returned home and began building the infrastructure for the Black Lives Matter global network, which even in its infancy has become a political home for many. The illiberality on this topic is focused on the overall issues associated with Africans and African Americans, such as the deaths of Keith Childress, Betty Jones, Kevin Matthews, and hundreds of other Black individuals. All of the innocent souls mentioned had all battled and unfortunately lost the fight against higher power and superiority, while being unarmed and non-threatening. The only weapons placed at the scene included the gun in the policeman's hands and the color of their skin. As you may wonder why this speech is directed towards all of you, I hope you can overlook our disagreements and shine light on what the challenge undoubtedly is, that we are not treated equally. The importance of your establishment, the All Lives Matter movement, was to purposely go against ours by saying, Black Lives Matter, Black lives are not the only ones that matter. Every race should be treated equally, which, yes, is verifiable. We should all be treated fairly, and people should not have to face discrimination as a minority, but your perception is very troublesome. As you protest against our protest, you are therefore stating that people of color are not persecuted against and don't face police brutality on a day-to-day basis. I want to be clear. Our message is not designed to minimize the importance of other lives, but to emphasize that Black Lives Matter too, not only. Responding to the Black Lives Matter message with an All Lives Matter theme is perceived as offensive and downright disturbing to African Americans because it minimizes the significance and factual evidence of what Blacks have faced through police brutality and systematic racism, something all lives have not necessarily had to face. Until the racism in America targeted towards certain minorities is acknowledged and addressed, all lives do in fact not matter. With all things considered, I hope we can see eye to eye on the clear delineation between the Black Lives Matter and other movements, and including All Lives Matter and Blue Lives Matter. My intention for this speech was not only to bring awareness to the racial inequality in the system, but to unite us all together in order to overcome other issues that are still taking place in this world. It is important to continue to focus on this message so that we do not move back in history. Although we have many differences, something we all share in common is having our individual voices. Use that voice to improve this world for not only yourself, but for the good of all mankind. No matter the ethnicity, religion, age, gender, or income, we all deserve equal rights. We all have a role to play. You can help by calling attention to racial issues by using your influence in social media platforms to tell the story about the oppression and dehumanization that many still face. When situations of racial divide occur, consider both sides of the equation. Media often emphasizes an officer or shooter as was the case of Trayvon Martin, felt threatened or acted quickly against a black person. But consider this question. Why did they feel threatened or quick to respond? An officer's first response, thought to an intimidating person of color, should not immediately result in pulling the trigger, but instead handling the procedure in a civil way without violence on both parties. Trayvon Martin looked forward to coming home to his mother. Tiara Thomas was supposed to come home to her 3 children, and Keith McLeod was shot and killed on his way to pick up his prescription at his local pharmacy. If these weren't people of color, would it have mattered at all without the Black Lives Matter movement? In the words of Martin Luther King Jr., and when this happens, and when we all allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day with all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Knowing what you know now, I want you to ask yourself, will Black Lives matter if we do not raise awareness around this issue and examine our response to inequality?